The Millennium Dome heist was no ordinary score. It was the kind of job that legends are made of, planned by men who had spent years honing their craft in London's underworld. They weren't afraid of risk. They lived for it. With £200 million worth of diamonds inside the dome, they saw the ultimate prize. All they needed was the perfect plan and the nerve to pull it off. At the head of the operation was Lee Wenham, a veteran of the London crime scene. Wenham had built a reputation over the years as a planner and a risk-taker, the type of guy who could pull off the impossible. He had his sights set on something that would go down in history, a huge diamond heist from one of the most secure locations in the world. Working alongside Wenham was Raymond Betson, a key player with a significant role in the gang. Betson was a hardened criminal with a long history in organized crime gangs. With Wenham as the strategic leader, Betson helped manage the logistics and execution of the heist. Both men had spent months assembling a team of trusted faces with the skills necessary to pull off such a daring operation. William Cockram was another essential part of the team, known for his ability to handle heavy machinery. Cockram would be responsible for operating the JCB digger, a vital component of the plan. The digger was intended to smash through the reinforced glass casing that protected the jewels, something that no ordinary tool could do. The gang also included Robert Adams and others who had their own roles to play, each chosen for their experience and expertise. These were men who had been involved in high-profile robberies before, and they knew this was no small job. They weren't just after ordinary diamonds, they were going for the De Beers Millennium Star, a 203-carat diamond worth a king's ransom. Wenham led the team during months of careful planning. They studied the dome, analyzing its security and finding weak spots they could exploit. Their approach combined brute force with the use of a JCB digger to break through the glass. They had plans for a high-speed getaway on speedboats on the River Thames. Their plan was ambitious, audacious, and well-rehearsed. They even planned to carry out the heist in broad daylight, banking on their speed and precision to outsmart security before making their escape. The Millennium Dome, a symbol of the new millennium, was also home to one of the most stunning exhibitions the world had ever seen. Behind the bulletproof glass sat some of the rarest and most valuable diamonds ever displayed, including the crown jewel, the De Beers Millennium Star. For any seasoned grafter, it was the ultimate prize, a gem that radiated wealth, power, and status. The kind of diamond wars are fought over and fortunes are built upon. But the Millennium Star wasn't the only treasure inside the dome. Alongside it were rare blue diamonds, equally breathtaking and worth tens of millions. Together, the collection was valued at a staggering 200 million, a prize that not many would even dream of going after. But Wenham and his crew were not like others. They saw the dome's diamonds as more than just wealth. They saw it as a chance to make folklore, to pull off a heist so daring it would echo through history for years to come. Security at the dome was tight, a fortress designed to keep the world's most precious jewels safe from any would-be thief. The exhibition was under constant surveillance, protected by cutting-edge technology and reinforced glass. The glass was thick enough to stop any conventional attack, and security guards patrolled day and night. The De Beers diamonds were the kind of treasure that drew attention from all corners of the world. But no one expected that anyone would dare to challenge the dome's defenses. For Wenham's gang, it was more than just the money. It was also a legacy, about proving they could take the most valuable diamonds on Earth right from under the noses of the world's tightest security. But the diamonds, especially the Millennium Star, were too famous. It wasn't like the gang could simply sell them on the black market. These gems were world-renowned, and their notoriety made them virtually unsellable to any standard fence. That's what made the heist even more dangerous. Betson and his team knew they weren't just stealing diamonds. They were stealing something that could instantly bring a world of trouble down on them. Moving stolen diamonds of this caliber would require connections deep within the criminal underworld, and even then, getting rid of them without attracting global attention was nearly impossible. The plan, however, was not to quickly sell the diamonds, but to break them up. Cut them down into smaller, less recognizable stones. Once altered, the diamonds could lose their uniqueness and be quietly sold off for millions. But this was a long game. Any mistake, any attempt to move the loot too early would have brought law enforcement and Interpol down on them in an instant. These weren't to be flaunted. They were to be hidden, dispersed, and slowly trickled into the market. For the gang, the gems were both a dream and a curse. Yes, they were worth millions, but they were also the very thing that made the heist so risky. Getting them was one thing. Keeping them and finding a way to cash in was another challenge entirely. The planned raid wasn't thrown together on a whim. It was a masterclass in precision and daring. They spent months plotting every move, knowing that one mistake could cost them everything. Their target, the diamonds, locked behind layers of high-tech security. But for this seasoned squad, no security was too tight and no target too ambitious. Wenham knew the heist had to be executed like a military operation. Every angle was covered, from the surveillance system to the timing of security patrols. They even scouted the dome in disguise, posing as tourists to gather intel on guard rotations, alarm systems, and entry points. They plotted every detail right down to the getaway, using the River Thames as their escape route. A high-speed boat was waiting, ready to whisk them away after they grabbed the jewels. It wasn't just bold, it was audacious. They knew that brute force alone wouldn't crack the dome's defenses. That's where William Cockram came in. A specialist with machinery, Cockram would operate the JCB digger, their secret weapon, to break through the bulletproof glass protecting the diamonds. It was a move designed for maximum impact, to smash their way in and take what no one thought could be taken. They had maps, schedules, contacts, and equipment lined up. It was the kind of plan that would leave even the most hardened faces in awe. If they pulled it off, they wouldn't just be rich, they would be legends. November 7th, 2000. This was the day that would define the lives of Lee Wenham and his team. They had spent months preparing for this moment, and now it was time to put their plan into action. The Millennium Dome was a fortress, and what lay inside was a prize worth risking everything for. The lads were about to go all in. They arrived at the dome in broad daylight, blending in with the buzz of tourists and staff going about their day. Disguised as workmen, they strolled through the site with an air of confidence, as if they were meant to be there. They had practiced this moment over and over again. Everything had to go like clockwork. Then came the signal. In a flash, William Cockram fired up the JCB digger, a hulking beast of a machine they had smuggled in. The plan was simple: brute force. They would use the digger to smash through the bulletproof glass that protected the diamonds, glass so thick that nothing short of industrial machinery could break it. Cockram rammed the digger forward, the machine roaring as it crashed into the display case, shattering glass and sending debris flying. The noise was deafening, but the gang moved with military precision. Inside the dome, security was in chaos. The raiders were prepared for this. They had factored every second into their escape plan. As alarms blared, they grabbed what they could, eyes fixed on the Millennium Star, their ultimate prize. As they smashed their way through, they deployed several smoke grenades, adding to the chaos. But what the gang didn't know was that the police had been watching them for months. As they smashed their way into the display, they were moments away from freedom, or so they thought. Out of nowhere, armed officers swarmed the dome, surrounding them before they even realized what was happening. It was over in an instant. What had been a flawless plan, a heist meant to go down in history, was undone by an undercover operation that caught them at the last possible moment. They were seconds away from being legends, but instead, they would be remembered for one of the most thrilling near misses in UK crime history. Just as Lee Wenham's untouchables thought they had the upper hand, the heist took a sharp, unexpected turn that no one saw coming. For months, the gang had believed they were pulling the strings, setting the stage for the ultimate score. But what they didn't know was that the authorities had been watching their every move, waiting for the right moment to strike. The gang was walking straight into a trap, and they were about to find out in the most brutal way possible. The police had known about the heist long before it happened. Scotland Yard's elite flying squad had been tailing them, gathering intel as they pieced together the plan. By the time the gang was ready to move, so were the police. Every step, every calculated decision the gang had made, had been tracked. In one of the most daring moves by law enforcement, the flying squad replaced the real diamonds with fakes, swapping out the jewels right under the gang's noses. And it didn't stop there. The police had infiltrated every aspect of the operation, from monitoring communications to studying the gang's tactics. They had been under surveillance the entire time, their perfect plan already unraveling even before it began. With the weekend approaching, 2 Securicorps drivers for the Aylesford depot set off in a van carrying upwards of 9 million in banknotes. They were set to complete their final rounds. As they navigated through an industrial estate near Maidstone, their journey was abruptly interrupted. A blue Ford Transit suddenly screeched to a stop in front of them, while a truck blocked them in from behind. In an instant, an articulated lorry equipped with a spike rammed into the back of the security van. The 9 raiders, masked and prepared, were after the cash inside. But before they could break in, 2 police officers arrived on the scene. Gunshots rang out as chaos erupted, and the robbers were forced to flee. Making a quick escape, they raced to a nearby speedboat and disappeared down the River Medway, slipping away, leaving the police empty-handed. The only lead they had was provided by a source who told them a person called Terry was involved in the heist. That was until a man drunkenly lost control of his car and drove into a pub in Horsmonden, near Tunbridge Wells, on August 17th. Its driver was known villain Terry Millman. The vehicle he was in was stolen and had the same forged tax discs as the ones used in the Aylesford robbery. That was a crucial moment. The police had found a main player in the gang. He was a character. He was an old-style criminal, incredibly loyal and probably a bit of a liability. Millman's fingerprints matched 3 found during the Aylesford raid. Detectives also discovered that he had regularly travelled to Kent in order to visit the Wenhams, a family of horse traders. Identifying Millman as a potential link between the 2 robberies, the officers let him run and watched where he went. Around the same time, a detective based in the area also spotted 2 known criminals, Raymond Betson and William Cockram. They were filming the entrance to the Millennium Dome. Suspecting a raid was in the offing, police wanted to catch the gang red-handed. The Millennium Star was moved to De Beers' London headquarters and replaced with a worthless fake. By this point, surveillance officers at Tong Farm in Brenchley had also noticed the arrival of a speedboat that had been bought by Millman, who used the alias Mr. T. Diamond in Whitstable. As the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, the police started connecting the dots between the Aylesford raid and a wider criminal operation. Terry Millman's name had surfaced, and surveillance of his movements revealed his connections to known criminals, including Betson and Cockram. Detectives began monitoring them closely, watching as they visited key locations and gathered for secret meetings. With every trip, every phone call, and every suspicious move, the police built a clearer picture of the gang's next big job. What followed were sensational trials that gripped the public, laying bare the planning and boldness behind the crime, while also revealing the missteps that led to their downfall. At the center of it all was Wenham. Thought to be the mastermind of the operation, his trial became the focal point. The prosecution detailed how he had recruited his team and orchestrated every move. However, the evidence was damning. Surveillance footage, phone records, and testimony from undercover officers painted a picture of a man who had been outmaneuvered at every turn. In 2002, Wenham was sentenced to 4 years in jail after pleading guilty to conspiracy to steal. At the same time, he was sentenced to 9 years after pleading guilty to an earlier attempted robbery in July 2000. This was a crushing blow for a man who was convinced he could pull it off and retire in luxury. Betson, Wenham's right-hand man, faced his own trial. Known for his cool-headed demeanor and key role in logistics, he tried to portray himself as less involved. But the prosecution had him pegged as a vital player, and the jury saw through his defense. He, too, was handed an 18-year sentence. His sentence was later reduced to 15 years. Betson was convicted again in 2014, following a botched raid on a cash depot in 2012, and later sentenced to another 13 years. William Cockram, the man responsible for operating the JCB digger during the heist, was also given a lengthy sentence. His role had been critical to the plan, and during his trial, the prosecution emphasized his willingness to break into the diamond vault. Cockram received an 18-year sentence. The sentence was later reduced to 15 years on appeal, sealing his fate as another key figure in the failed heist. Robert Adams, who had assisted in the planning and execution, was sentenced to 15 years. His involvement was undeniable, and the court heard how he played an essential role in the gang's operations. Like the others, Adams was caught in the web of evidence collected by Scotland Yard, leaving little room for leniency. The Millennium Dome heist should have been their masterpiece. A plan so bold, so perfect, it could have made them legends. Lee Wenham and the syndicate had the skills, the nerve, and the prize in their sights. They played the game at the highest level, knowing the risks, but savoring the reward that waited at the end of it all. They were seconds away from making history, from walking away with 200 million in diamonds. But instead, it all came crashing down. The plan that had promised glory ended in chaos, with each member of the gang facing long years behind bars. It was a moment that changed everything. 1 second, they were untouchable. The next, they were just another crew that flew too close to the sun. They had everything in place: the loot, the getaway, the perfect setup. They were right on the edge of pulling off the crime of the century, a heist that would have set them up for life. But instead of walking away as kings, they ended up with nothing but time. Time to think about how close they came to immortality. In the end, it slipped through their fingers, leaving only the question of what might have been. They didn't get the diamonds, but they'll always be remembered for how close they came. For more raw and real crime stories, hit the like button and subscribe. Until the next episode, stay alert and stay safe.